So, how do you make decisions in your marriage, in your relationship, in your life when you feel stuck? And one of the things that I know, having worked with couples and individuals in regards to relationships for over 20 years now, is that not starting at all is the biggest problem because you feel so stuck and so camped out in a low emotional frequency state. So on your screen, you see one of my favorite things. It's a relationship frequency chart. It's by and developed by Dr. David Hawkins. So check out his work. It's really amazing. He has many, many books that he's written. This is from a book called Power and Force. So do check it out. But basically, what Dr. Hawkins teaches us is that what we already know, which is low level energy. So the energy lower on an energy frequency chart like this one that you're seeing on your screen is sluggish. It doesn't move, and it is associated with emotional states that are collapsed, very contracted. And so if you are in a relationship with your partner and you feel a lot of guilt or shame, that's lower frequency. Again, like we know this, right? We don't need someone to tell us this. It's something that many of us intuitively know and we've experienced. However, what I find really helpful, and I use this chart in my 8-week relationship mastery program with women, is to help you really see visually where it is that you're showing up in your life. Because if you are showing up with blame, self-blame, which is a big one for a lot of the women that I serve, where they're beating themselves up, they feel guilty about their choices. They are not sure what to do. They feel bad. If I do this, what about the kids? If I do that, what about our retirement account? So all of that heaviness in terms of guilt, self-blame, shame, that is going to keep you in such a collapsed state. And in that state, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to access an experience that's higher on this frequency scale. Does that make sense? So before I go on, my name's Jenny Glick. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sex therapist. In this space, I'm a relationship mentor. And so really my job is to help women like you go from these lower energy frequencies to a higher energy frequency. I call that your higher self or your 2.0 self. Women show up with me and they are in a state of despair. They are in a state of self-blame, of blaming their partner, of feeling guilt, of feeling stuck for many, many years. Sometimes many, many decades. And what I help them do is walk up this ladder into a place of more willingness, acceptance, so that they can access love and joy. You see that love and joy are almost polar opposite ends as blame and guilt, right? And so it is so important for you to recognize what it is, and if you've been following me for a while, you hear me talk about this a lot, what it is that you're thinking, what it is that you're believing, what it is that you're feeling, so your emotional states that you're parking in, and what it is that you're doing. And most women, when they start out working with me, they're thinking thoughts of regret. Look at where that is on this frequency scale. It's low level. They have anxiety. They're living in fear. They feel despair. There's blame. So that's what they're thinking about. That's the emotional state that they're in. But they have this desire for love, for joy, for peace, for connection, right? Which is totally different experience than what it is that they are practicing in their thoughts, than what it is that they're practicing and what it is that they're doing, right? Because they're showing up in their relationship, understandably, because there's unforgiveness, there are years of hurt. And so they're in a contracted state emotionally, right? And so they're not in that expansive state that's higher up in this chart that you see. Is this making sense to you? I hope that you're recognizing that if you are thinking, feeling, doing, and believing in these lower level frequencies, you cannot get something that is in the higher frequency. It just doesn't happen. And so it becomes critically important for you to be aware of this and to dial in how is it that you're going to show up, right? And what is it that you have to untangle yourself from in terms of your practices, your old practices of thinking, feeling, doing, believing, right? And reworking that. So the women who I work with, we spend a lot of time reworking old beliefs, beliefs around I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to have love, nobody listens to me, those kinds of things. Those are lower energy experiences. And this doesn't mean that you're not never going to feel grief or despair, that you're never going to feel shame or embarrassment around something or anxiety. But it does mean that you learn how to have the feeling. I've been writing about this a lot lately. Have the feeling without parking yourself in that experience, right? So coercion, blame, force, those are all lower energy practices, right? So if I coerce my partner, if I feel coerced by my partner, if I don't do this, my partner is going to fill in the blank. Coercion is a tool of lower energy frequency. Again, that is not rocket science. You probably know that, right? Free will, sovereignty, choice is a tool of a higher level relationship frequency. So if my partner invites me to be intimate, having choice around that, having expansion feels joyful and loving because there's acceptance for what it is I decide. But a collapsed version of that is if you don't have sex with me, then I'm going to be mad. I'm going to lord over you, right? Again, this makes sense. We don't often need science to tell us this. We know this intuitively. And yet sometimes it's valuable to have it really clearly explained so that we can align ourselves with how it is that we want to live. So I would encourage you to pay attention to, are you using tools of guilt or blame or shame with others, with your children, with yourself, with your partner, with others, maybe with people in your community, right? Tools of love and acceptance, right? Acceptance requires us to have maturity. Acceptance requires us to know how to anchor into ourselves so that I can accept how it is that my partner shows up, that I can forgive, I can understand. Notice those words up there on your screen. I can be curious about, that's a big one that we work with a lot in my program. How do I be curious about my partner rather than manipulating them or coercing them to do something that they don't want to do? Because if I don't, I'm going to withhold my love or affection or belonging, right? And so paying attention to what's the relationship energy that you're bringing to your relationship. I well know, having been married for over 20 years and still married myself happily, that none of us are going to show up in those higher levels all the time, deeply connected, and empathetic, curious, and harmonious all the time. I know that we're going to drop into worry and fright and anger and disappointment. And our practice, because I really see your marriage as this kind of modern day mystery school, it's this opportunity for you to really grow in your spiritual evolution, in your personal transformation by knowing how to unhook yourself from the pattern, the toxic pattern and practices that we have of living in anxiety, disappointment, living in a state of demanding that others change so that I feel better about myself. And it's an invitation that our relationships and sometimes our parenting, right, practices invite us to do. So I encourage you to take a screenshot maybe of this relationship frequency chart. Pay attention to it, use it, notice how it is that you're showing up in your life. When I talk about 1.0 self moving to your 2.0 self, your 1.0 self is this version that's kind of under, 150 and below. And that's how most women show up to work with me. Not 100% of the time they're not there, but a chunk of the time, especially in their relationship. Your 2.0 self is a version of you that is really dancing above that line, that green line. And that's the version of you that is practicing utilizing tools of being satisfied. What's it like to be satisfied in your life? So many of us are always looking for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So practicing things like satisfaction, practicing things like being open in your relationship and curious in new ways, right? And paying attention to where it is that you want to contract. So that's your mini training for today. If you're interested in my 8-week relationship mentoring program, it is September 2021 right now if you're watching this on recording, and I am enrolling for another couple of days until October 1st, and then doors close for the rest of the year. And I will be launching that again in 2022. Reach out to me and let me know if you're interested. We will do an interview, see if you're a good fit. And if you are, we can get started. This is my dog, Jane. Super Jane, come on. Thanks so much for being here. Check out my other videos on YouTube. I had to start a new YouTube channel because I got deplatformed. I have no idea why, but I did. And so I have lots of videos being republished here over the next many months as I try to get my robust video collection live on this particular new channel that I've just started. So thanks so much for being here. I have some links in the comments below, so subscribe to my email list, check out the trainings and offerings that I have on my website, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.